prayer and spiritual intercession. Most people think it's a solitary practice, but what if the entire foundation of spirituality is actually built on our connections to others?
That's such an intriguing perspective. I was just reading about these ancient traditions that completely challenge our modern, individualistic approach to spirituality.
You know what's fascinating? There's this incredible story about Abraham, essentially negotiating with God over Sodom and Gomorrah. He starts at 50 righteous people and works his way down to just 10. Talk about spiritual diplomacy.
Well, that really shows how far back this concept of intercession goes, one person standing in the gap for others.
And what's really striking is how this ancient practice is still causing waves today. Like this recent document, Fiducia Supplicans, that sparked intense debate about the nature of blessing and communal prayer.
So how does this connect to modern spiritual practice?
Well, it's fascinating because it ties into this larger concept from the Book of Steps, this ancient Syrian text, that suggests we're not just responsible for our own spiritual journey, but somehow connected to everyone else's too. It's like this vast spiritual ecosystem where every prayer has ripple effects.
That reminds me of that unusual parable about the dishonest manager reducing people's debts, such an unexpected lesson about mercy.
Exactly. And here's what's mind-blowing about that parable. It completely turns conventional wisdom on its head. The master actually praises the manager not for his dishonesty, but for his cleverness in dealing with others. It's suggesting that sometimes spiritual wisdom comes from the most unexpected places.
You know what's really striking about all this? How it challenges our modern obsession with individual achievement and personal growth.
Right, and look at what's written in Genesis about being accountable for each other. The text literally says, God will demand an account for human life. It's not just about personal salvation, it's about being deeply interconnected with others' spiritual welfare.
That's such a countercultural message in today's world of self-help and personal spirituality.
And here's where it gets really interesting. There's this concept of willing the good of the other that appears in these ancient texts. It's not just about having warm, fuzzy feelings toward people. It's about actively choosing their welfare over your own comfort.
So this ties into practices like fasting and self-denial then?
Exactly. These aren't just arbitrary rules, they're practical training and putting others first. And what's fascinating is how these practices connect to this idea of temporal punishment and suffering. There's this belief that we can actually take on spiritual burdens for others.
Well, that's quite different from our modern good vibes only approach to spirituality.
You know what's really powerful? The tradition of praying for one's enemies. It's described as the ultimate form of spiritual warfare. Instead of responding to hatred with hatred, you respond with prayer and blessing. It's completely counterintuitive, but incredibly powerful.
That's such a profound reframing of how we think about community and responsibility.
And maybe that's the real miracle in all of this, not the dramatic interventions we sometimes hope for, but the quiet transformation that happens when we start taking responsibility for each other's spiritual welfare. It's about recognizing that we're all connected in this great web of prayer and intercession.
That really changes how we might think about our daily spiritual practices.
Exactly. When we pray, when we fast, when we make sacrifices, we're not just doing these things for ourselves. We're participating in this larger economy of grace that affects everyone around us. And that's what makes this ancient wisdom so relevant today. It's challenging us to think beyond our individualistic spirituality and recognize our deep interconnectedness.